Welcome to Andy Staples On3. And what the hell did we just watch in Miami, Jesse Suckinson? Let me set the scene. The clock is ticking.
It, Andy.
The clock is ticking. Georgia Tech has
They're doing
no
the milking
timeouts.
thing.
Yes.
They're doing the milking thing.
Yes,
yeah.
But not the milking thing. Not the milking thing, but the milking thing.
Not the Jonathan Smith, but the actual milking. Yeah.
Yes. There are fewer than 40 seconds on the clock. The play clock is 40 seconds long. Georgia Tech has 0 timeouts. It is 3rd and 10. Miami, instead of taking a knee, which is all they need to do, they can take a knee and walk off the field. They take a snap in the shotgun and hand off and fumble. And Georgia Tech gets the ball back with 26 seconds and scores a touchdown. Is that about
two plays?
2 plays.
Yeah, well, the only exclamation I would add on that, Andy, is the irony that Haynes King, formerly of Texas A&M, who lost to Miami a year ago and got benched in that game, the Aggies lost to the Hurricanes again this season, just beat said Hurricanes as the starting quarterback at Georgia Tech. Transfer portal, giveth, taketh. Go with it where as you may.
Haynes King completed a pass to on the day of the Texas A&M Miami game or Texas A&M Alabama game last year?
One Mr. Andy Staples.
Me!
Yeah.
And I was beating Miami.
Mario Cristobal, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't Oregon, Miami, it doesn't matter where he's been as a head coach. He's phenomenal in December, phenomenal in January. February, whatever the 2 signing days are. But when it comes to Saturday's in-game management, game management, clock management, it's just been a calamity of errors at both stops. Today was the nadir. I mean, this is a game that, Tyler Van Dyke threw 3 interceptions. He was terrible, but you outgained Tech by more than 200-something yards before that final 75-yard dash. And you should have won the game, should have been undefeated, going to North Carolina, a big, maybe, top 2, top 15 teams, competing for the ACC or trying to be in the mix there with Florida State. And you just go full Yosemite Sam like we have not seen in a long time.
I have never seen, I haven't seen anything like this. I know that the Herm Edwards scoop and score when he was with the Eagles, that happened because of this, but that was before teams took knees. Like there used to be some sort of thing where you couldn't, you were unethical if you took knees. But since we decided common sense should reign, and if there's less time on the game clock than on the play clock, you can just walk it out, take a knee. Like, what? How does that happen?
Well, what's crazy about that too, Andy, is that I think it was Brock Heward that was on the call, was criticizing Cristobal and Miami for their clock management.
That was West Durham and Matt Hasselbeck. It's a Hasselbeck.
Matt Hasselbeck, not Brock Heward. I got my NFL quarterbacks confused. Matt Hasselbeck. He was criticizing Miami before the fumble for the way they were operating the clock, that they weren't bleeding it down, that there was no reason after they got the first down to be running the ball anyways, and they should just be kneeling it. And then they do fumble the very next play. You get a busted coverage 2 times in a row. Haynes King was terrible before that in this game. What an awful loss for the Hurricanes. I mean, cataclysmic.
We're going to talk about Louisville in a minute. But here's what you need to know. You can't afford a loss in ACC play if you want to win the ACC title. Because Louisville doesn't have to play Florida State and doesn't have to play North Carolina. North Carolina doesn't have to play Florida State. You know, it has to play everybody who's good in the ACC. Miami does. And they have to play Clemson. So this is just an abomination. This kills them because they're not going to be able to recover from this and win the ACC title, probably, with all that they have left to play.
Georgia Tech lost to Bowling Green last week.
Yes, Bowling Green. They lost to Bowling Green. They did beat Wake Forest before that, though.
They did beat, but as we discussed earlier this afternoon, Wake Forest is terrible. This is the Demon Deacons are not the typical Demon Deacons of old. But I mean, what? Yes, complete meltdown. The comments are doing our analysis for
Curveball saying it's shocking the refs called it a fumble when Don Chaney's left elbow was clearly down. Look, they reviewed it. It's a fumble. It should be a fumble because they were so dumb to run a play in the first place. Like, they should be penalized possession for being stupid.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was
God dang.
And you know what? They got and frankly, they got in their way even before that. You know, they get the big interception, and then they kind of completely go backwards in the red zone.
But at least they kicked on a field goal there.
They didn't kick a field, but I'm saying, like they had a chance that they could have gone up a touchdown. That was still a missed opportunity. Yeah, big win for Brett Key there. I mean, that was especially coming off a extremely humbling loss a week ago.
I was talking to a Georgia Tech person on Friday, and they were lamenting the Bowling Green loss, and I said, but you did beat Wake Forest, so it feels like it's kind of even. Well, now it's way more than even.
Yeah. I mean, this is the sort of results he delivered late in the year last year that got him the interim job.
Curveball in the chat won't give up on the elbow being down. Curveball, it's a ball don't lie situation. They lost the ball for being stupid. That's why they lost the ball.
Here's a curveball for curveball. Call me the next time Mario makes a smart late game decision when the clock is involved, because we have yet to see it at both Oregon or Miami. And they have gotten in their way.
Going to say this himself. His press conference hasn't happened yet, but he's going to say this himself. Like, I believe that. What he's going to say.
He has to. I mean, like, you can't say anything else. You can't put it on the kid that fumbled. You need to take. You're the guy that's making $10 million. You need to take some ownership there.
Yeah, I don't blame Chaney at all. That's not Chaney's fault. He's going crazy on the sidelines and beside himself. He should never have been put in that situation. The person making all the money should have known to tell him to take a knee.
The day that the narratives died, Andy. Texas is back, and the U now just stumbles again.
Well, those narratives.
I'm joking with
Oklahoma's back.
I'm joking. I know. I literally wrote a column that it's not about the Texas is back narrative. It's about validation for Brent Venables. That was a tongue-in-cheek completely.
Well, we got to talk about everything else that happened on Saturday night, because it was a very eventful evening. Let's go to Louisville, where Notre Dame is eliminated from the college football playoff race by the Cardinals.
As I predicted.
And if you listened to the show all week, you heard why this would happen or why this might happen. I didn't think this, like 33-20, no, I did not expect them to dominate the second half the way they did. I didn't expect it to be that much of a runaway. But I did expect it to be very difficult for Notre Dame, because they just played two incredibly physical games in a row at night. They got another night game. They have USC next week. Everything was working against them. This was the biggest game in Louisville in years and years and years. And Louisville was spectacular. You heard Jeff Brom on the show last week. Seemed very confident going into this game. I don't know that he thought this would happen, but they're way ahead of schedule. And if you look at the rest of Louisville's schedule, by the way, they're playing Pitt next week. Their toughest game, their toughest two games, their toughest game in the ACC remaining is Duke. Their toughest game, period, is probably Kentucky.
Yeah, I picked this game individually wrong. I did not see the Irish running the table ultimately and getting to the college football playoff. But I am someone that was, throughout the offseason, was extremely high on Louisville. I've written a couple different columns calling them a dark horse contender for the ACC in year one under Jeff Brom because I like the work he did in the transfer portal. I think for as much shine as Deion Sanders and some of the other guys have gotten for what they've did or hauled in, through transfers, the guys that Brom brought in have just been impact players, both defensively and offensively. Jamari Trash, the wide receiver, another monster game tonight, big touchdown. Jack Plummer has just been okay. He had 5 touchdowns in a game earlier this season, but he was, serviceable tonight. But this is, I think it comes down to, Andy, frankly, I think this Louisville defense that was really good a year ago, then they lost some of those best pieces, Yaya and some of the other guys, to the NFL. But they've kind of reloaded, and they are nasty again. I mean, this is – Louisville's a house of horrors for Sam Hartman. He had 6 turnovers the last time he was there. Tonight he had 5, 3 picks, 2 fumbles, and he probably could have had 6 or 8 because Louisville dropped 3 interceptions. I mean, it was just they put their cleats into the ground and they said, we're going to win this game. And they took it to the Irish. Full stop.
Let's not forget Jawar Jordan, who was a Scott Satterfield holdover, who was just fantastic on Saturday night. He was breaking long runs. He was running tough in between the tackles. He was awesome. So it is going to be a fascinating race in the ACC because now Florida State has to play Miami, but again, we just saw what Miami did, and we saw what Florida State did to Miami last year. So, but North Carolina has Miami left. It's possible Florida State, North Carolina, and Louisville wind up undefeated in ACC play. All 3. I'm gonna have to call the ACC office and get a tiebreaker on that, because there's tiebreakers for teams that have losses.
Is that the office meme where they're all like pointing at each other?
It has to. They're all undefeated.
Yeah, exactly. They're all looking at each other. It's the little office meme.
How likely is it that they all go 8-0 in ACC play? Not likely, but exactly. It's possible.
Someone's gonna because of the result that we saw tonight with Georgia Tech Miami. Someone's gonna get likely got. But I will say this: you talk about Jordan had the big game rushing. As impressive was what Louisville was able to do to Audric Estime.
Yes,
Notre Dame could not run the ball, and I mean, I jokingly tweeted, but I mean, whatever, Parker's short yardage play sheet is, he needs to throw that thing in the trash the rest of the season because it's been multiple games now, Ohio State, Duke, and now Louisville, that they have lost two or three of those games where they can just not, Notre Dame could just not get 3rd and 1, 2nd and short, 4th and short, and it cost them.
Good news, Jesse, for the Irish, though. You ready?
They got USC next week.
They're going to move the ball next week.
Yeah.
They give up some points, but they're going to move the ball. We will talk about USC. Well, I will talk to you guys about USC Arizona in the podcast version of this show that drops tomorrow morning.
In the wee hours.
Or I might just get on video and go, how does this keep happening? Because USC's defense is struggling currently against Arizona. But let us go to another game. And this game was over so quickly, it feels like it happened on Friday. Georgia 51, Kentucky 13. The Bulldogs have arrived for the 2023 season. This is the team that we thought they were going to be all year. Holy crap.
You know what this is? We've heard a lot about the cake baking from Nick Saban. The cake's got to bake. The cake's got to bake. You can't take it out of the oven too early. You got to check on it. You got to let it make sure that it, rises enough. You take it out. You let it rest. That's what this was, Andy.
You're using Nick metaphors for this?
Yes, because this is people want to know. I guarantee you've been asked this a million times in the last couple of years. I know I have on Twitter, emails, whatever. What does the process mean? What is the process? I hear it's about the process at Georgia and the process at Alabama. This is what the process looks like when it comes to fruition. It's that It may take a little bit longer, but there is a plan in place. You and I talked about in this very space a week ago. What does Georgia need to do? They need to pass to basically pass to
run.
lead.
And
pass
we
to
were
run.
doing the reaction show to the Texas A&M Alabama game, and I'm watching in the first quarter as we're talking about Texas A&M and Alabama, watching Georgia go vertical on their first series, and I'm like, this is going to be a bloodbath, and it sure was.
100%. And this is a game that in the last couple of years has been played in a phone booth. But Mike Bobo and Kirby clearly said, no, that's not our strength. It's not Brock Bowers is the best player not named Caleb Williams in America, I think, right now. Marvin Harrison, Brock Bowers, there's an argument, but whatever. But they have a lot of other playmakers on the perimeter. Ra Thomas, Rosemary Jack Saint, Dominique Lovett, Arian Smith, these guys. They have a bunch of guys on the outside that can make plays. Carson Beck clearly is a guy that can distribute the football. So what do? They throw for 175 yards on their first 2 drives, march right down the field, and score 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's just and so I think that this is going to become the identity. Again, you and I spoke about it in this very space last week. That's going to become the identity of Georgia the rest of the season. And so Kirby Smart and this team has been at its best the last couple of years when they've been, challenged the most, or when they felt, quote unquote, challenged the most. And they certainly answered the bell tonight. Kentucky was held to under 200 yards, could not really run the ball. Leary was a complete mess. This was Georgia, kind of cementing, hey, we still are the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, and that was against a good team. There's no revisionist history on Kentucky. Like, Kentucky's pretty good, and Georgia just demolished them. So if you were wondering if Georgia had another gear, Georgia has another gear. So when I do my the projected rankings last week, I had Alabama projected to win the SEC. No, I'll have Georgia projected to win the SEC again. Don't worry. They have the other gear. They are capable of that.
Or do you have them in your resume rankings, you think?
They're going to be up there because it's pretty impressive. Now the other games count too. So
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, I'm not going to have them number 1, but I am going to have them up there. Now, a team that's also not been in the resume rankings that is going to make its first appearance in the resume rankings is Michigan, because they have not played anybody yet, but all they do is smash everybody they play. Like, there is something to be said for being consistent. They go to Minnesota. They had a couple defensive scores. They were very efficient on offense. It was just easy, 52-10 win. And so, no, Michigan has not played somebody yet. I cannot wait to see them play somebody.
Well, I don't know about you, Andy, but folks may laugh at me, and that's fine. You can riddle me in the comments. I'm someone that likes to sleep with a face mask. I want it totally dark. I want it totally cold.
Yep.
So blinds totally closed, curtains, all that, air conditioning way down, face mask on. You could put a face mask on for Michigan this year, and it doesn't matter if they're playing a Big Ten team, a Mountain West team, an AAC team, a Sun Belt team. They are beating all of them the same. They are just killing them and sucking the life out of them. And basically in the second half, being kind of like Georgia a la 2022, boa constrictor in the second half and just squeezing the life out of them. I mean, it's been impressive.
Now, can they do that against Penn State? We don't know. We won't know until November. But they keep beating everybody exactly the same way. And God help poor Indiana next week. Good Lord.
Well,
they've got Indiana, Michigan State, and Purdue before they play Penn State. So all we're going to see is 3 more of these.
Yeah, and it's just, more opportunities for this offensive line and running game to continue to get humming. JJ McCarthy to continue to kind of, spill the pill. I mean, it's just, and their defense, they don't have the names of Abdul Carter, Chop Robinson, some of the guys on Penn State, JT Tuilamoto, and Ohio State. But collectively,
everybody on Michigan's defense is going to play in the NFL.
Exactly. Collectively, they're just an awesome group. And they may have, 7 offensive linemen drafted.
It's crazy. No, they were absolutely dominant, and they're dominant every week. And there's something to be said for that. Even if your schedule's not great, there's absolutely something to be said for that, because it's what we talked about with Georgia. Where is that? How come we haven't seen that? Well, we saw it against a very good team tonight. Michigan, we've seen it every single game. So that matters. Yeah. We can't get out of here without talking about Coach Prime. Coach Prime went on the road, beat Arizona State. Is that a huge accomplishment? Probably not, but I believe a lot of tickets cashed tonight, Jesse, because wasn't the win total
Over
for
under.
Colorado at most places 3.5?
It was, yeah. I mean, that's this was closer than the experts thought, but yeah, I mean, Arizona State, as you and I were kind of discussing offline here, they've become a little bit better offensively ever since Dillingham kind of took over some of the reins back there. Colorado engineering Shador, last minute field goal drive. This was a big one because if Deion Sanders is going to win 6 games and get this team bowling for the first time in a 12-game schedule, I think since 2016, they needed this one. Because you have Stanford coming up too, but if in terms of like winnable games, you look at this game, Arizona, Colorado still has some tough games on the slate. So this was a big one, and you went on the road. It was not a lot of folks probably saw it. Pac-12 Network, it certainly didn't get the eyes and Twitter engagement that recent Deion games have received, but it was definitely a big win for the Buffs.
And let's not forget a game that more people could see because it was on Big Fox.
I love
Wyoming beats Fresno State and Laramie. So Wyoming took a big lead. Fresno State came back
24-7.
Yeah, Mikey Keene got knocked out, and the backup came in, and it looked like there was a chance, but then a giant Wyoming defensive lineman intercepts.
That guy.
Oh, he was huge. He intercepts Logan Fife to seal the win, and he looked like a Coke machine running with the football.
I was so hoping that we were going to get a nice fat guy touchdown there. So I do this, predicting the AP top 25 the next day, Andy. You and I have to kind of discuss this before.
Cole Godbout, by the way. Cole Godbout is the name.
Cole Godbout. That's a great.
And what a name!
All time. What a name. That's an all. He definitely deserves on the all team 2023 name team. So who would you rank, Andy, among these two teams?
Mm-hmm.
Wyoming now 5-1. Just beat top 25 Fresno State.
Only losses at
Texas Tech. Only losses at Texas, or Missouri team that is 5-1, beat a Kansas State team that just lost at Oklahoma State. Lost, basically a one score, but ended up being a 2-score game against LSU. Who would you rank over those two teams? Because we've had a lot of other movement in the top 25. Based on some of the other next teams that were ranked, those teams all lost. A&M, Kansas State, some of these other guys. So it's going to be like a Wyoming or an Air Force or a Missouri that stays at top 25.
I think they might both get ranked. Now, here's the thing. Wyoming plays Air Force next week.
I know.
So the inside track on the Mountain West, and I don't know about you, but I think the Mountain West champ may be the one that goes to the group of 5 spot
New
in the
Year's 6
bowl. Yeah.
I think it's either them or Tulane, right?
Right. And Tulane has a loss to Ole Miss already, but that's going to be very interesting to see, because now Fresno State has the wins against Purdue and against Arizona State. They shut out Arizona State.
Yeah.
Now, so I think Wyoming will be ranked, and then whoever wins next week will stay ranked and go up between Wyoming and Air Force, and the other one will drop out. So because Air Force might wind up ranked this week too.
But they may be penalized. They might, but they may be penalized because they're off this week. That's the only
That's
reason.
true.
You know,
That's true. They don't have a
you know
win
how
to ride in. Yeah.
and you know how AP voters are. If they don't see a result on the schedule, they just forget those teams entirely.
Well, here's the deal. I don't think a lot of AP voters have watched Air Force at all this year. So that's
what. Here's the deal.
Probably
Here's
will be the
deal.
first game that this game next week against Wyoming probably be the first game most of them watch.
I totally agree. Here, I guess here's a follow-up question though. Do you think Kentucky drops out because of getting the demolition that happened?
The win against Florida doesn't really hold them up much. But the problem is you got Florida and Tennessee, and Florida beat Tennessee, but Tennessee's only got the one loss. So you can say, well, Florida also lost to Utah, so we can rank them below Tennessee. So I think you can probably do whatever you want with Kentucky right now.
Yeah,
because I don't think Florida's going to be ranked, so you won't have to make sure you keep them above Florida.
Little eye of the beholder there.
Yeah, it's that that's a little poll inside baseball.
Exactly.
Here's the thing: teams 15 through 40 are the same.
I've long said I haven't actually dropped it quite that low. I've always said basically 20 to 35, 20 to 40, but you could probably go all the way to 15 for sure. Yeah, as we saw tonight with Ole Miss basically playing with its food and, you know, beating a Hogs team that kind of looked like they were laying down a week ago. So,
I mean, that's the thing. We're going to see weird results that don't make sense. Like Miami could very well go play North Carolina in a very competitive game. What we saw today against Georgia Tech suggests that North Carolina is going to beat Miami by a ton. I don't know that that's going to happen necessarily. 1 week to the next can change a lot.
Arizona's still beating USC but it's halftime now. So
yeah, USC just scored right at the end of the half. So we will see what happens. But Jesse, this has been a phenomenal Saturday of college football.
It has been.
I will probably be back at the start of the podcast talking about Arizona and USC. So if you haven't gotten enough of me already, you will get more as the opener to the podcast, because we will have to talk about whatever happens at the end of Arizona USC. Jesse, this has been awesome. What a day. Started with that amazing Red River game in Dallas. Oklahoma's back, baby. Georgia decided to join the 2023 season and be like, you know what? We may just mess around and three-peat. If that's all right with y'all. Alabama is in control of the SEC West. Notre Dame is out of the college football playoff race. Louisville is 6-0. What a week this is going to be coming up. What a week. We'll talk to you again soon.